Okay, I want you to just for a second picture a scenario.
Yeah.
It's one of those moments where your heart is kind of in your throat.
Mm-hmm.
You've just spent, I don't know, 3 hours tweaking your resume. Or maybe you're filling out that endless application for a mortgage.
The first house.
The first house, you hit submit. And you're expecting, a process. You're expecting a human being to look at your name and weigh your potential.
Right. You're waiting for some kind of connection, a chance to make your case.
Exactly. But instead, 3 seconds later, I mean, literally while the page is still loading,
Yeah.
you get the notification.
Yeah.
Application denied, not eligible, candidate rejected. It's instant, it's cold, and honestly, it feels incredibly personal.
It's visceral. It hits you right in the gut.
Yeah.
And the worst part isn't even the rejection itself.
No.
It's the silence, the complete silence that comes with it. A job opportunity vanishes into the ether. A loan collapses. Housing drifts just out of reach. And there's absolutely no explanation.
That is the thing that drives me up the wall. If a person rejects you, usually they have to at least, look you in the eye or send a polite email. But this is what we're digging into today. It wasn't a bad interview. You didn't stumble over your words. It wasn't some hiring manager having a bad day. It was a silent verdict.
That's the term. It's from the book we're covering, and it's just a perfect description. A verdict delivered by code, automated, final, and usually with zero avenue for appeal.
So today we are diving deep into a book that I have to say really shook me up. It's called The AI versus Humanity by Albert Hadi. And right off the bat, don't let the title fool you. When I first saw it, I thought, okay, here we go, another sci-fi prediction about robots taking over the world in 2050.
It sounds like that, doesn't it? But it's actually the opposite. This book isn't really about the future. It's about the boring, invisible bureaucracy that is running your life right now.
Yeah.
It's not Perminator. It's the software that decides if you get health insurance.
Which is, frankly, infinitely more terrifying, if you ask me.
I agree. And just to be clear, for everyone listening, we are not going to be talking about Python code or neural networks today. The mission of this deep dive, it isn't technology. It's power.
Power.
Hadi's whole argument is that we are witnessing this massive transfer of authority. We've moved from visible human judgment, which, let's be honest, is flawed,
Of course.
to these invisible technical structures that no one is allowed to question.
And the core tension, the thing that Hadi really hammers home, is how we react. Because when I get that denied email, my first instinct is to shrug and say, well, the system decided.
Right.
Like it's the weather. Like it's gravity, computer says no.
Precisely. We treat it like an act of nature. But Hadi argues that blaming the system is a massive distraction, a convenient fiction. The chapter that really anchors this is titled, The System Didn't Decide, Someone Did.
Okay, so let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Because I think most of us, myself included, kind of buy into the illusion. We think of algorithms as these abstract things floating in the cloud, untouched by human hands.
Yeah.
But you're saying that's a total misconception.
It is the ultimate misconception, and it's a dangerous one.
Yeah.
We have to stop looking at algorithms as, abstract math. We have to look at the specific people who design them.
Right.
The book uses this concept of human hands.
Human hands, I like that.
Yes. Behind every single automated decision, there is a human architect. Someone sat down and wrote the rules.
Okay.
Think about it this way. Imagine a developer. Let's call him Dave. Dave is sitting in a glass office in Silicon Valley, or maybe London. Dave has to decide how to filter 1 million job applicants. He has to decide what makes a person risky or safe.
So Dave is sitting there, drinking his cold brew, deciding what? That if I've moved addresses 3 times in the last 2 years, I'm unstable.
Exactly. Or if you have a gap in your employment history of more than 6 months, you are automatically filtered out.
Wow.
Dave types that rule into the code. He hits save, and suddenly that subjective opinion, Dave's opinion, becomes a hard law for millions of people.
That is wild to think about.
Yeah.
Because if Dave told me that to my face, I'm not hiring you because you moved apartments too much, I'd argue with him. I'd say, hey, my landlord sold the building. It wasn't my fault.
Right. You could provide context. You could appeal to his empathy. But once Dave encodes that bias into the system, the context just disappears.
It's gone.
You are just filter out. The code is just the messenger. The policy was written by a person.
And the really scary part is, we never consented to Dave running our lives.
That's the key. This governance happens without consent, without any oversight, and with no public debate. Hadi writes that we have sleepwalked into a system where efficiency has become the moral excuse.
Efficiency has become the moral excuse. That line really stuck with me. It's like, we've decided that as long as the decision is fast, it doesn't matter if it's fair.
We've traded deliberation for speed. In the old world, the human world, profit and risk had to balance against, dignity and lived experience.
Sure.
If a bank manager knew you, they might overlook a bad credit score because they knew you just went through a divorce but were back on your feet.
Right. There was room for the human story.
But the system is designed for one thing: speed. Risk reduction. It doesn't care about your story. It only cares about the score. And Hadi argues that this shift from context to calculation is a moral tragedy.
I do want to push back on this for a second, though, because I can hear some listeners thinking, okay, sure, it's cold, but isn't it also fair?
Oh, yes.
I mean, we all know human bosses can be racist or sexist or just play favorites. Isn't a computer by definition neutral? Isn't math objective?
The trap of objectivity. It is the most common defense of these systems. It's just math. Math can't be racist. And if we were talking about 2 + 2 = 4, sure, but we aren't.
So where does the bias come in?
It comes in from history. Hadi explains that these predictive models don't just emerge from a vacuum. They are trained on historical data. They are fed, 10, 20 years of past decisions to learn what a good candidate looks like.
And history is? Well, let's just say history has some baggage.
Exactly. Imagine you are training a hiring AI for a Fortune 500 company. You feed it the resumes of everyone who has been promoted to executive level in the last 20 years. Well, statistically, who held those roles?
Mostly men. Probably mostly white men.
Right. So the algorithm looks at the data and says, aha, I see a pattern. People named John or Michael tend to be good executives. People who went to these 3 specific colleges are good executives.
Doesn't know why.
It has no idea why. It just sees the correlation. So it starts downgrading women or people from state schools or people with ethnic names, not because it hates them, but because it's faithfully repeating the bias of the past.
So it's not removing human bias. It's just automating it.
It's cementing it. There's a quote from the book that sums this up perfectly. Bias does not disappear inside code. It becomes harder to see, harder to contest, and far more powerful.
That brings us to this idea of structural invisibility.
Yeah.
Because if a human being discriminates against me, that's illegal. I can sue them. It's visible. But if an algorithm does it?
If an algorithm does it, you don't even know it happened. You just know you didn't get the interview. You feel like it's a personal failure. You think, I guess I just wasn't good enough.
You internalize
You
it.
internalize it. But in reality, it wasn't a personal failure at all. It was a structural design. You were filtered out by a rule you never saw and can't challenge.
And we can't see the rule because
Because it's a trade secret. These models are proprietary. That is the sealed-off nature of this power. In the past, decisions that affected your livelihood, they usually demanded an explanation. Now, those decisions are buried inside black boxes. The people affected are never allowed to see the internal rules that govern their lives.
So we have these invisible structures built on biased data, hiding behind the excuse of efficiency. And this leads me to the part of the book that I found the most eye-opening, the democratic deficit.
Yes.
Because if the machine isn't really deciding, it's just crunching numbers, and the low-level employee at the bank isn't deciding who is actually in charge.
This is where the curtain gets pulled back. Hadi identifies a specific group of entities that are effectively running our social infrastructure. Private companies, defense contractors, big technology firms, and massive consulting groups.
Consulting groups. See, that's not who I picture when I think of the masters of the universe. I picture, politicians or billionaires. But you're saying it's the consultants.
Well, think about the incentives. If you are a massive bank or a healthcare provider, do you want to be responsible for denying coverage to a sick person? No. That's bad PR. It's a liability.
Right, you want to pass the buck.
Exactly. So you hire a third-party consulting firm or a tech vendor. You pay them millions to build a risk assessment model. They build the black box. Now, when the patient is denied, the hospital can say, hey, don't look at us. The algorithm flagged it as high risk.
Oh, so it's a liability shield.
It's a liability shield. But here is the problem. These consulting groups and tech firms were not elected. They were not publicly vetted. There was no town hall meeting where we voted on the criteria for who gets a loan.
Of course not.
There is no public mandate granting a private tech firm the authority to classify who is a productive citizen and who is, Dead weight.
But they are doing it anyway.
Right.
They are effectively legislating our lives.
They are. And look at the incentive mismatch the author discusses. What is the goal of a private tech contractor? Is it justice? Is it social equity?
No. It's profit, it's satisfying the client, it's reducing risk.
Exactly. Their goal is efficiency and liability reduction. So when they build a system to screen tenants for housing, they are optimizing for those goals. They are asking, how do we ensure the landlord never loses a dollar?
Right.
They are not asking, how do we ensure people have a place to live?
It's a fundamental clash of values.
Yeah.
And the scope of this is just massive. The text lists so many areas: access to work, healthcare, education, insurance, credit. It's not just one app, it's the entire infrastructure of modern life.
It is the gateway to opportunity. If you can't get past the algorithm, you can't participate in society. And the really frightening aspect of this is the timing. Hadi calls it the pre-filter.
The pre-filter. Explain that.
Think about how exclusion used to work. You'd walk into an office, hand in your resume, maybe talk to a receptionist. You were in the room.
Your person.
You were a person. Now, the decision happens upstream. Before you ever become a person to the organization, you are just data.
So you are eliminated before you even knock on the door.
Exactly. Decisions on who advances and who is eliminated happen before a human ever becomes involved.
Yeah.
You are filtered out before human empathy or reason has any chance to intervene.
That is chilling. Before empathy has a chance to intervene, it creates this wall where you can't even plead your case.
And that wall creates a quiet re-engineering of society. The analysis in the book suggests this is a re-engineering of class and mobility itself. We are creating two distinct groups of people.
Who are they?
On one side, you have the architects, the people with power, the ones designing the systems, setting the thresholds, deciding that applicant A is valuable and applicant B is waste.
Okay.
They're the ones who understand the rules because they wrote them.
And on the other side?
The processed, the people without power, the ones who are constantly being scanned, sorted, scored, and filtered by these opaque rules.
The processed. That sounds, well, it sounds dystopian. Like something out of a novel.
It feels dystopian, but look at the reality described in the text. Health outcomes, educational paths, employment prospects, they are all being filtered by these systems, and the result is a society where exclusion feels personal.
Right.
When you don't get the job, you think, I wasn't good enough, but actually it is structural. And denial feels inevitable. The computer said no, but actually it is engineered.
Engineered exclusion. It really changes how you look at every digital interaction. Every time I apply for something online now, I'm going to be wondering, who built this filter? Who is the Dave behind this code?
And what assumptions did Dave hold? What historical data did he use? Whose values are encoded in that neutral score? These are the questions we need to be asking.
You know, this brings us back to the start. That feeling of frustration, that silence when you get rejected. It's not just bad customer service. It's a symptom of this power shift.
It is, and I think that's why the AI versus humanity is such an important read. It validates that frustration. It tells you, you aren't crazy. You aren't just unlucky. You are navigating a system designed to treat you this way.
So, knowing all this, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
We've painted a pretty stark picture. Is the takeaway just throw your computer in the ocean?
No, not quite. The good news, if we can call it that, is clarity. Understanding the mechanism is the first step to challenging it. Hadi isn't trying to sell fear. He's trying to expose the plumbing.
Right. He's turning the lights on.
Exactly. By naming the problem, by shifting the focus from the system to the designer, we can start to reclaim some agency. We can stop asking, why did the computer do this? And start asking, who programmed it to do this and why were they allowed to?
That is a crucial shift. Stop blaming the tool, start questioning the carpenter.
Precisely. We need to move toward what I'd call power literacy.
Power literacy. I like that.
Yeah.
What's that look like?
It means we stop being dazzled by the technology. When a company says, our new AI approves loans in 2 seconds, we shouldn't just clap. We should ask, okay, but what criteria is it using? Who audited it for bias? Who is accountable if it's wrong?
We need to stop being impressed by the speed and start worrying about the justice.
Yes, because technology is just a magnifier for human intent. If the intent is profit over dignity, the AI will magnify that. If the intent is exclusion, the AI will make exclusion more efficient than ever before.
Efficiency has become the moral excuse. I can't get that line out of my head. We've accepted that if something is faster, it's inherently better.
Right.
But if it's faster at being unfair, that's a massive problem.
And that's where the democratic deficit comes in again. We never agreed that speed was more important than fairness. That decision was made for us in boardrooms we aren't invited to by consultants we didn't elect.
Usually when we talk about AI, the conversation gets so abstract. We talk about consciousness or singularity, but this has been so grounded in the human element, it's almost ironic.
It is.
The problem with AI isn't the artificial part, it's the human part.
That is the ultimate takeaway. The system didn't decide. Someone did. And until we can see that person and hold them accountable, we're just fighting ghosts.
So here is my recommendation. If this topic hit close to home, and I have a feeling for a lot of you listening it did, if you've ever felt that silent rejection and wondered what happened, you need to check out the source material. It's The AI versus Humanity by Albert Hotty.
You can find it on Amazon.
It's a heavy read in terms of implications, but the way it breaks down these complex power dynamics is incredibly accessible.
It's not dense technical jargon, it's a social critique, and frankly, it's a necessary one. As these systems get more integrated into our lives, into our healthcare, our housing, our jobs, we need to be literate in how they work.
We'll put the link in the show notes, of course.
Definitely.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from the illusion of the neutral system to the reality of the human hands behind it. We talked about how bias hides in the code and becomes structurally invisible. We talked about the consultants and the liability shields. And we talked about the quiet re-engineering of society into the architects in the process.
It is a lot to digest, but it's the reality of the world we are building.
It is. But I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, a little provocation for your day. We've talked about how we tend to blame the machine, we curse the screen, we yell at the app.
Yep.
But think about this. When we accept a digital rejection as just the algorithm, when we shrug and walk away, what are we actually accepting?
We are accepting the hidden values, the blind spots, and the social positions of the specific people who built it.
Exactly. The machine is taking the blame for us. It's the perfect scapegoat.
Yeah.
But if the machine is taking the blame, who is actually holding the power? And are we okay with him having it?
That is the question that should keep us all thinking.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and we'll see you next time.